Are you mixing your live stream audio in a DAW and still struggling to get a great sounding mix? I think I can help you with that in two ways. First, in this video, we're going to look at my new Reaper template, and I'm going to explain to you why I think it can help you.
When I stand accepted before the throne of God, I'll gaze upon my Jesus and thank Him for the cross.
And then second, in my next few videos here on my channel, I'm going to address the one thing that will make or break your mix. This one thing, far and above beyond anything else, will determine if you have a good sounding mix. And that one thing is the person you have operating it. Too often we train our volunteers with what all the knobs do, but we don't show them what to do with those knobs. How do you mix music? Here at my church, I use the beta mix process to train my volunteers. If you want a better sounding mix, use the beta mix process. And I'm going to demonstrate that with my Reaper template, but really you could use the beta mix process on any equipment, wherever you're mixing.
Fire of God, fall within. Holy Ghost, breathe on us, we pray. As we repent, turn from sin, revival and a smoldering breath of God, fan us into flame. 'Cause we need a fresh wind, the fragrance of heaven, pour your spirit out.
So why do I think my template will help you? To answer that, I need to take you back to a consulting call I had with a church recently. They were mixing their live stream audio in a DAW. It wasn't Reaper, but that doesn't matter. And they had paid a company to make a template for them. And this template had all the plugins. They had purchased the Wave subscription, and so every channel had stacks and stacks and stacks of plugins, and buses had stacks and stacks of plugins, and there was just all the complicated routing in there, side chaining and all of that. And it was kind of like if you had gone out to YouTube and watched every tutorial about mixing and mixing techniques and put that into a template. And so suffice it to say, they weren't being very successful with that because they didn't understand it. And to make matters worse, when they needed to make adjustments in that template, they were adding more plugins that they could adjust. And so it was a mess. And that's when I had the idea, what if we could create an analog style console in Reaper? And if you remember the old days of analog consoles, everything was laid out right in front of you. You could glance across your mixer and see what every channel was doing, and you knew right where to reach for a knob when you needed to make an adjustment. Every channel was the same, and you could see it all laid out right in front of you. I wanted to create that experience for Reaper. I started searching for plugins that I could use with this embed the UI in MCP feature here in Reaper, where if the plugin is designed for it, you can show the plugin controls right in the mixer panel. And I came close to what I wanted with a few plugins. I really like a lot of the Toucan plugins, and he has an inline channel strip that is nice, but it still had a lot of mystery buttons and secret alt clicks that you have to use to see all the different views of the plugin. And I never found a plugin that would just let me see and control the whole thing all at once. So I created my own. I'll be perfectly honest, I used AI to help me come up with the algorithms for EQ and compression and saturation and width. I have a background in programming from a previous life, but I'm not smart enough to come up with those algorithms for like an SSL style EQ. AI is a force multiplier for the knowledge that you have. So I put that to use and created the plugin that I needed.
My praise is a weapon. It's more than a sound. My praise is a shout that brings Jericho down. Oh, as long as I'm breathing, I've got a reason to pray.
The way this works is that every channel has a trim knob that lets you adjust the incoming gain, a gate if you want to use that, and then an EQ section with a high and low shelving EQ, and two sweepable mid-range EQs and a high-pass filter. Then there is a compression section with threshold and ratio, attack and release controls, and makeup gain. And then finally this saturation knob, which adds some nice musical warm harmonics. Oh yeah, and this width knob up here. Let me show you how this works. It needs a bit of explanation. It may not be exactly what you're expecting. I have the span plugin here on the master bus, which is a spectrum analyzer. And the way I have this set up is under the routing, I've selected the mid-side stereo. And then for the underlay, I've selected the side. What this shows us now is that the green is the frequency content of the middle channel, or what is equally in both left and right channels. And then the red shows us the side channel, or content that is unique between the left and right. So now if we go to something like my bass channel, this is a mono channel. It's coming in on just one input, so it's all green. It's all in the mid channel. And even if I adjust the width control, it's not doing anything because there's nothing in the side channel. But if I go to something like my lead guitar, this is a stereo channel. It's coming in with a left and right from the player's pedal board. It has a significant amount of signal in the side channel. And now if I adjust my width control, you can see that when I increase the width, it increases the volume of the sides, which effectively pushes the stereo image wider for this channel. And if I bring it down all the way, that takes the sides out completely and makes it fully mono. When the knob is straight up in its default position, the channel is unaffected. That's original mid-side balance that is coming in. I like this approach to adding stereo width to your instruments because unlike other phase techniques, you can't mess it up too bad. You can't really get a bad sound out of it. Below the channel strip is another plugin I created with assignment switches for routing each channel to your buses. So you can not only quickly and easily route a channel to where you want it to go, but also see at a glance where each channel is going. This also has 3 effect sends that you can toggle on and off, and you can control the channel send level to the effect. It gives you the benefits of an old-style analog console where you can see at a glance what every channel is doing, but with the benefits of being digital and in a computer. The template will come in 2 flavors. One is just as you see it now with all the tweaks that I've made for this band and these instruments. That should get you in the ballpark for most situations, but you'll still need to tweak your EQ and compression settings to your specific band. The second flavor of the template will come zeroed out, or just a blank mixer that you can dial in all your EQ and compression settings yourself. Now, admittedly, the plugins that we have available to us today are a huge advantage to mixing in a DAW, especially over what we used to do with just an analog console. So I have also put a slot on each channel for pre-effects before my plugin, and post-effects, which comes after the plugin, and you can add your choice of any additional plugins here that you want, without messing up the way the mixer looks with everything nicely aligned here in the mixer, which sounds like just an aesthetics thing, but it's actually an important part of what makes this really ergonomical to use. It's quick and easy to find what you're looking for. Let's talk about additional plugins. This entire template can be run on free plugins since the majority of the heavy lifting is being done by my plugin here. But there are some additional plugins you will need to download and install to make this work. Those are kind of running in the background. There is one plugin that I recommend you purchase, and that is the Valhalla Vintage Verb. That's down here on the reverb return channels. If you don't want to purchase it, I think it's $50. I do have an alternative available. Just delete the Vintage Verb plugin and check one of these other plugins here to enable them. It will give you a similar result, but I really do think the Vintage Verb plugin is worth the cost. It's just a great sounding reverb. On the master bus, you'll get this magic sauce container that contains my master bus plugin chain. Again, this is my free plugins version of my master bus chain. Someday I'll probably release a Waves version of this template, and that will be free to people who've already purchased this version. Below that is a LUFS meter. This will turn green when you're in a good volume range for live streaming, so an easy visual indication that your levels are right. And then below that are some switches. These will turn on or off some of the things that I'm doing in the magic sauce container. So if you don't want my EQ sweetening, you can just toggle that off. Or if you don't want the stereo widening or the saturation, just toggle those on and off. I'd recommend you do some A/B testing on that though, because I really think you'll like what the magic sauce does to your mix. The magic sauce really is a formula of plugins that I've landed on over the years of mixing in a DAW, and if you go in and start messing with it, you kind of ruin the recipes. So I know no one will follow my advice on this, but my recommendation is to just leave that alone and don't mess with it. Just use these toggle switches to turn things on or off if you need to. Okay, let's talk about some limitations. Because of the things I'm doing in Reaper to create this greater ease of use, the being able to route your channels like this, it creates a few limitations, or I should say just some things that you can't change. The first is you're limited to these 8 buses. You can't add any more buses. And if you want to change the names of the bus, it's a little bit complicated because of the naming here in the plugin. So if we change this drums to track, then the way we would have to change it over here in the switches is to click into the plugin and then click on edit and scroll down to where you see this message about change only this to change bus names, and then change this string and save this, Control S, and then you'll see that the name has updated here. Now, you'll notice it didn't update for all of my other channels. I would have to close Reaper and reopen Reaper, and then all of those channels would reload the new code in the plugin. But my naming of these buses will make a lot more sense to you when you watch my next video on the beta mix process. The first video in that series is going to be about balance and identifying the role an instrument plays in the arrangement of a song. And these buses are named after those roles. So if you stick with me, I promise it'll be worth it. And keeping those bus names as they are will make a lot more sense when we get there. And also, sticking with 8 buses lets you nicely fit your buses onto a fader controller like this, which then lets you mix with fingers on faders, which I highly recommend. I really recommend that you get a controller like this. Another thing to be aware of is that, again, because of the way that this plugin routes the audio to the bus, the normal pan knob here in the mixer no longer works. So when you turn this knob, it may look like it's doing something here on the channel, but it's actually not changing the output. So to pan things, you just have to use the knob here in the routing plugin. That will actually pan it left and right. Finally, as far as limitations go, because of the complex routing that each of these channels has in the background, if you're going to add a new track, I have a bunch of generic tracks for you to use here already, and you can rename these channels. That doesn't affect anything. You can delete a track if you want, but in the event that you need to add a track, my recommendation is to just duplicate an existing track. You can duplicate a track just by right-clicking on it and selecting Duplicate Tracks, and then you'd have to route the input to the track to use the input that you want to use for that track. I'll talk about routing here in just a second. So let me show you how to get this template installed, and then we'll be done with this video. Once you purchase it on my website, you'll get an email with a link to this Google Drive folder. In that folder will be a zip file. Download that and unzip that folder. And in that folder will be a couple of things. First is an installation guide, which will step you through what I'm about to show you. But the first thing you need to do is download and install this list of plugins. Like I said earlier, they are all free except for the Valhalla Vintage Verb. You may need to use your email and create an account for some of these, like the Fresh Air plugin. Once you have those plugins installed, open up Reaper and go to the Options menu and select the Show Reaper Resource Path in Explorer. In the file window that opens, go to the Effects folder and copy this whole Ballast Media folder into the Effects folder. Now, I already have mine there, so I'm not going to do that, but you should end up with this folder here in the Effects folder of Reaper. At this point, you should be able to open up the template file, choose either the version that I have tweaked to my band, or you can choose the zeroed version. I would recommend you leave these files unedited so you can come back to a fresh start if you need to. So what I would recommend is that as soon as you open the template, go to File, Save Project As, and save the file somewhere you can find it and rename it to something useful for your environment. And then you can start saving that project as you make adjustments and start tweaking it into your band. This is optional, but I'd recommend you go and download this default V5 gradient theme for Reaper. Once you've downloaded that theme, all you have to do is drag and drop the file into Reaper and that theme will get applied. You didn't see a change because I'm already using that theme, but you should see your Reaper change to look like this. And this is purely a cosmetic thing, but it will also guarantee that if you're going to follow along with the things that I do in my upcoming training videos, all the switches and buttons and stuff in Reaper will be in the same location and look the same as what I'll be showing you. Finally, the last step, you'll need to route your inputs to these channels, so that, let's say, your bass input is actually coming to the bass channel. I highly recommend you create and maintain a patch sheet for your front of house board that shows you what instruments are on what channels of Dante. This will make your life a whole lot easier when you're doing your patching. And then what you're going to do is on each channel is a pull down menu for the input. If it's a mono channel, select input mono and select the channel that the instrument is coming in on your computer. And if it's stereo, say you have a synth channel with a left and right, select input stereo and select the pair of channels that it's coming in on. That way we don't have to worry about using two channels for your left and right and then linking them and panning the inputs. This takes care of that automatically for you. Just use a stereo input for that. I understand that my template is probably not for everyone. If you're into all the things in your DAW, stacking plugins and complex routing and all of that, that's great. Go be successful doing that. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm finding is that most churches are having a hard time finding that person. It's hard enough to find a second volunteer to mix your live stream separately from your front of house. And let me end with a reality check. Your live stream audio is only going to be as good as the person who's operating it, the person who's mixing it. No template, and especially not mine, is going to magically mix your audio for you. So my hope is that with my template and the series of videos on mixing that I'm about to put out, that will equip you and your volunteers to be able to create a great sounding mix. All right, my template is available on my website. Go check it out. Until next time, bye.